Hello and welcome to another tutorial from Hobby Maker. I'd like to show you in this video some actual projects that we can put together using the die cut techniques we've been learning. So I'm going to start with one that we call paper piecing. It's a bit like a jigsaw and you put pieces back into a pattern. So let's get started. I have a die here which comes with two parts to it. So if you remember, when we have a die like this is the section that's going to cut into the card and leave the pattern in the card, and this is an outer edge that can cut as a panel, so we can cut the two together and create a whole shape with a finished cut edge. And that's what I'm going to do on this occasion. So let's get our die in place. Now when you have a die like this, it's really important that you get the spacing as accurate as possible between the two dies. Some dies have more space than others. Some fit quite closely together, which is obviously more easy to sit them right. Take those in place on the card and let's pop that through the machine. Remember, when we have a die that has a very straight edge, that we twist it slightly so the rollers can take it more easily. Now with this particular die, we get a lovely open panel and all these little pieces pop out. Now these are the pieces that I want to paper piece back in. So this means I need to cut this again in some different colours. So I need to make sure that all the bits are out of my die, and I can then cut this again, and I'm going to cut it in a lovely purple because it's a pansy. So I've got one that I've already done and I've just taped the pieces in place so they didn't fall out. So you can see I've cut this from some lovely purple cardstock, and I'm going to use some of these pieces to go back into this one. But I also want to cut some of these leaves. Now the leaves will cut the whole thing out. It's just the bits in between. So here where it's attached to the frame, it doesn't actually cut. But if I want to cut this panel, it will cut the whole thing out. So I don't need to use my frame at this point, but I do need some green card. And also, I don't need to cut the whole thing. There's no point if I don't want green pansies. I just want the green leaves. So I'm just going to cut the leaves. So I put that die and make sure that the leaf spaces are on the cardstock. And I can now cut myself some green leaves, which make a bit more sense than purple leaves, don't they? Now, it is important when you're doing something like this that you keep all the bits until you know which ones you're going to need. It's really frustrating if you've tidied up and put all the bits in the bin and then you find you need one of them. And I know because I've done it. So let's take this from the die now, and then we can see exactly what we are going to need. Right. So I've got my panel of white here, and I can do a few things. I can just take out the pansy, so these petal shapes, and I can pop these back in. This is what we call paper piecing. So find the right bits that fit the gaps, and already I think you can see that that's really coming alive. And then the corner belongs there as well. And as you do this, you'll start to realise which bits need to go back in. So I can see that we've still got some petal here and here. So I need to put that in there. And that little corner shape there. Now it would appear that I've lost it. But if that happens, it's not a problem. You can just put your die through and cut yourself another little piece. That's no bother. I have got one I've already done, so I can show it you properly. Now from the green, I can see that that's obviously a leaf there. And then this isn't. This is a space between the leaves, so I don't need that bit. I do need that bit. And I need that bit. And actually, that little tiny bit there is also part of the leaf. So I need that bit, and that's gone walkabout as well. So, top tip, there we are. When you're doing this, work on a little piece of paper and keep all your bits and pieces in a little pocket so that you don't lose them. So we can put this little tiny piece in there. Okay, so hopefully you can see how that's coming together now. And then I've got this piece which is part of the background, so I can piece that back in with the white that came out earlier from our first cut that has given us the outline. And we have this little piece as well to go in like that. Now that's all well and good, but how do we get these to stay in place? Because at the moment they're not stuck, are they? They're just placed in there, and it's only staying there because it's resting on the table here. So how do we get those to stay? Well, we have double-sided adhesive, which is amazing stuff, and this is what's going to help it all to stay together. So I have a piece that I've already cut to size, and what I want to do is put this on the back. So I'm just going to pop the pieces out again. Now you've got an idea of where we're going with this. And I'm going to take one side of the backing off the double-sided adhesive. If you can just pick that corner up and release it. And then what I do, keep this backing with the side that's facing the sticky's here, and put it down on the table. Put your die cut face down onto that, so that when I put the sticky down, it's not going to stick to this, because otherwise it would, or whatever you've got under there. But because I've got the release that came off the backing, it's not going to stick except to the card. So we'll pop our double-sided adhesive down. It's always as well to smooth that out, make sure everything's adhered to it, and then we can take that off because it was the original release paper, so it's let it go again. And now I've got something sticky that I can apply all these little pieces to. So I can go in now, put these all in place, and if you find that you're getting your fingers on it, just again use that release paper. Make sure you know which side was facing the adhesive, because otherwise it will stick where you don't want it to, which is not fun. And then we can go in and fill all these little pieces. So you get the idea. Once you've done that, this is what you will finish up with. Isn't that pretty? So that's just one little idea. Now, if I want to make a few changes to that, I can do. So instead of putting this white cardstock back in here, I could have added some sparkle. So if I bring back my piece that I was working on, just take that out. So if I've got all the card in here, but that's still open and I don't want to put the white in, I can just sprinkle in the glitter. So once it's got the cardstock in there, it's no longer sticky, it's covering up the sticky. And then any bits that are left open, that are exposed, you can put other things in. So it might be that you want to put some gilding flake in there, or as I'm going to do, some glitter, or it may be that you want to add some beads even. But all I'm going to do here is bring in a fine glitter. I'm just going to protect that area that was missing its petal. And then I can sprinkle in this glitter and fill up that space just for something a little bit different. You see that? It's really pretty. So, options already. So here's one that I've completed, and on this occasion I decided I wanted to make it really look like a pansy. So I've used some pale lemon cardstock to cut the bottom part of the flower. I've used that lovely purple to create the outside of the flower. We have green leaves and we've got a lovely sparkly edge in those remaining open areas. So a really pretty effect. The only thing I will say about doing this is that when we take the backing off here, the double-sided adhesive is actually transparent, so you will see through any colour that you put behind it. Now I wanted to mount this onto a purple background, but I don't want this to come up purple, which it would do. So what I want to do is mount this onto some white card so that when this is applied, it will show through nice and crisp and white. So let's do that. So I'm going to take off the other half of the protective layer of the adhesive. Now can you see how if I put some colour behind that, it takes on that colour, and I don't want it to do that, I want it to stay white. But you might want it to do that, and you have that option. So let's pop this white card now to the back of our panel. And I've made it just slightly smaller so it doesn't stick out at the edges. All right, and now this is going to stay nice and white. And now I'm just going to apply this to a simple card. I've got a panel here of inky card which I made on my jelly plate. That's something for another day. But you may have some nice decorative paper, or you may like to use perhaps a panel that you've used in an embossing folder. That's another way to add a nice background. But as we've said throughout these videos, you really don't need to be doing anything ultra fancy. Keep it simple and it can still be really effective. So let's get our background on here. Okay. And then we can decide whether we want this to go on flat or we can lift it on foam pads if we choose. I'm just going to add it on flat this time. Let's pop that there. And what I'm doing here is having a look at these three borders and trying to get those as even as I can. And then the next thing I want to do is add a sentiment. And let's pop this onto our card. And there we have a really lovely little pansy birthday card using all your lovely die cutting techniques that you've been learning.